Hello, Tom Lavecchia here with the New Theory Podcast. Today, the question is, can anyone, and I mean anyone, get rich? Today we have Dr. Mark Tobach on the line, and we will be discussing his new book. Dr. Tobach, welcome to the New Theory Podcast. How are you doing today?
Okay, great, and thanks for having me.
All right, that's a lofty title. Anyone can get rich. So talk to us about the fundamentals and foundations of what it takes to be rich, and then I would like to hear a little bit about how anyone can be.
Well, the most important concept that I want to impart is the concept of compounding, which is something we all learn in grade school, but in grade school it isn't taken to the limit. So the best way to get the concept across, I think, is to think of a 31-day month, and a penny is doubled on each and every day. 1 penny on the first day, 2 pennies on the second day, 4 pennies on the third day, 8 pennies, and so on. Now, using common sense, you would think you'd have a bag of pennies on July 31st. But if you know exponential rates and compounding, you know that it's over $10 million. So the point is, yes, it is. It is. Run it for yourself. There are online calculators where you can run it, and there are also images. And I don't have the image in my book, but I have day 1 through day 31, and just keep doubling. The analogy I put in a recent piece I did for Value Walk is think of the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars and entering hyperspace, because you enter hyperspace after a long, slow rise. So even day 20 in that month, you don't have much. But in the last few days, it absolutely balloons. So the point is, when people start saving and investing at the market rate, which is often 10% over a lifetime, in a non-taxable account, a retirement account or a Roth IRA, it will absolutely balloon as long as they don't buy and sell madly, as long as they stay in the index funds and accept what those give. You know, where if they don't get caught up in FOMO, you know, fear of missing out.
Correct.
So there's a high-flying stock they want to grab. Using what Kahneman and Tversky, are you familiar with their work? There's a book by Dave Kahneman, because he's the surviving member of that crew of 2. They're psychologists who actually won a Nobel Prize, even though there's no Nobel Prize in psychology. They won it in economics.
Interesting.
And what they figured out is there are 2 separate systems in the brain. There's the intuitive system for ordinary day-to-day life. And then there's the hard-working system that we need to engage in order to do higher-order math, to plan, to do things that are highly logical and rational. So system 1, that common sense system, tells you that you get a bag of pennies at the end of July 31st, at the end of July. But system 2, that sits and calculates, tells you got to get $10 million. Now, system 1 would also tell you the way to get rich is to find incredible stocks, buy them and sell them and buy more. But people who do that usually don't do well. And every broker is incentivized to trade, because that's where they make their money.
Correct.
And intuitively, we want to trade. We don't want to miss out, and we also want to get in there and gamble. The urge to gamble in human beings is very profound. And the best investors don't gamble. They want sure bets rather than risky bets. But it's risky bets that appeal to us. So the person who can think rationally, avoid risk, and do what he needs to do or she needs to do to simply compound money in a non-taxable setting over a lifetime is going to be rich. And another example I've given, and it's in that Value Walk article, and it's also in my book, if you just took the $5 a day that a poor person tends to throw into the lottery system, you know, the people who buy the tickets every day, they line up. All right, so you take $5 a day, and instead of putting it in the lottery system, you add it up, it's about $1,870 per year.
Yeah.
Put that in a retirement account, untaxed. Compound it at 10% over 50 years, you get $2.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
but go ahead.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
So you're road to wealth, because I would say, you know, there's different roads, obviously, right? You have the 1/3 that's inheritance, other thirds.
I'm losing you. I'm not.
No, I'm saying there's different kind of folks that obtain wealth, right? 1/3 is inheritance, 1/3 is, you know, financial sector, and then 1/3 is just good old fashioned, just hustling your ass off and making it, right? So what you're saying is there's almost like a fourth group where you can work for somebody or you can make a good salary, but just kind of watching your P and Qs, compounding interest, picking the right marathon approach. Pretty much literally anyone can be wealthy by the time they retire. Is that your message essentially?
Yes, you have articulated it beautifully. And I'll tell you who I stole it from, because I'm not that smart.
Can I guess?
This doesn't begin with me. There's a wonderful old book, and it was a million seller, and it's called
hold on. Can I guess? Mark, can I guess? Dr. Tilbach, can I guess?
Please.
I want to say Robert Kiyosaki, but I'm not sure.
It's actually The Richest Man in Babylon.
It's
a wonderful old tale. It's a narrow little book. It couldn't be more than 100 pages or so, and it's been around for years, and it's sold millions of copies. And it's a make-believe Bible story. It reads like biblical liturgy, and it tells the story of these two guys. One of them is a chariot maker, and the other one's a musician, and they're old friends. And they're each approaching each other for a loan, and neither has any money. And they start to squabble. And then they say to each other, why don't we talk to Arcad, who's our childhood friend, who's the richest man in Babylon? So they go looking for him, and they find him. And he's willing to talk to them. He doesn't snub them. And he agrees he's no brighter than they are. But as luck would have it, he was employed by an elderly man who promised to give him the secret of wealth if he did a job for him. He did the job, and he got the secret. And the secret is pay yourself first. Maybe you've seen this in another setting. Pay yourself first. In other words, 10% at least of your money must go into a retirement account. I didn't have them in Babylon, but you know what I mean. They didn't have taxes either. And lend it out at a rate of interest that's as much as you can get without excessive risk. And in the course of your life, it will grow like a tree. And when you are elderly and can no longer work, and if I didn't mention it, these guys are on in years, so their jobs are hard for them to do, you will bask in the shade of that tree. You will eat its fruit and no longer labor for your money.
Wow.
It's a beautiful image.
It's fantastic. And like I said, it's timely right now because I think, millennials, Gen Xers, but millennials and now Gen Z, they're willing to work. Like, they want to work hard. And I hate to generalize. However, though, I think quality of life is becoming more important to folks these days versus maybe the fast attribution of wealth or acquisition, rather, of wealth. And I think what your principles are teaching will facilitate that. So, Dr. Tilbach, share with us how can we find the book?
All right. I'm having a little trouble
Oh, yeah. Share with us how we can find the book.
Oh, how you can find the book.
Yes.
The book is on Amazon, the website, and it's also on the Barnes & Noble website.
Beautiful.
It's available as a paperback, and it's also available on a Kindle. And I've priced it as low as I can go through Amazon because I wanted to make it widely available. It's only a few more than 100 pages long. It's an hour's read, according to Amazon. And it gives you the basic principles. There are others that I haven't yet mentioned to you. One of them is to avoid the lure of the bad bet, that we like bad bets, like, for instance, the lottery.
Yeah.
And my recommendations are that you follow the wisdom of Charlie Munger. He is absolutely brilliant. He has a 1-hour lecture. I think it's from Harvard, and it's probably 20 years old, on human misjudgment. And he teaches you so many things that you can take with you day to day and improve your life. And one of them things he teaches is inversion, a concept out of algebra. Take it, whatever it is, whatever is your worst problem, take it and turn it over. Turn it on its head, run it backwards, and see it afresh. So let's take the worst problem poor people have financially that I just mentioned. They spend their money on the lottery instead of investing it. So let's invert the lottery, and I do this in my book. If you invert the lottery, you would say, you've got to buy a ticket every day without fail. It's not your choice. You have to buy. You also can't exempt yourself so that every person in the country has to buy a ticket. You don't get to draw the lottery until the end of your life instead of having a daily drawing. And if you invert all these aspects of the lottery, what do you get? You get Social Security. Now, nobody wants to play Social Security, but they do want to play the lottery. And the difference is that it's immediate versus delayed gratification. And delayed gratification is so very hard to do, especially if you're young. You can't imagine yourself as an elderly person without an income. And that's why Social Security was so wonderful. Nobody can imagine what life was like before it, but the expression I use in the book is one from medicine, because I'm in medicine every day. Pneumonia used to be called the old man's friend. Why? Because it was better to be dead than poor, old, cold, and broke. So you have a system that is the inverted version of the lottery that's available to all of us, but there's nobody holding up a Social Security check on a TV show, only a lottery check. But the lottery doesn't work. You know, the chance of winning
it makes perfect sense. And you're taking basic principles that have always been out there and applying them to kind of a current mentality. Beautiful. And then, Dr. Tobak, how can we find you on your social media or website?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
How can we find you?
How can you find me?
Yes, on social media or your website. How can we find you?
I'm working on a social media presence. I always avoid it because I'm a psychiatrist. So I can't have my patients running into each other. I can't have people discovering who my patients are. Privacy and psychiatry are like sacrosanct. So I'm not on social media actively. I have a website that identifies me and my practice. It has this book on it. We're working on a video for it that should be ready pretty soon. And I have on the website, this was manna from heaven, I have a note from Warren Buffett. Congratulations.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely blew me away when it came in the mail. I thought it was junk mail. You know, it just looked like an ordinary mailing from Berkshire Hathaway, and I'm a stockholder, so, you know, I would expect an ordinary mailing.
Wow. That
Inside
is amazing.
was a note from the man himself.
That is amazing. Well, listen.
I memorized it so I can recite it to you.
Yeah, give me a minute or so. Feel free.
Okay, it says, Mark, well done, with an exclamation point, P.S. If anything, you underestimate Charlie. And that's, of course, Charlie Munger, his partner. And both Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger and their ideas are featured very prominently in the book, both the ideas that they have for finance and the ideas that they have for living.
That
because
is amazing.
They really are, philosopher kings in a sense, and much of what they talk about applies to everyday life, whether you're talking money or not.
That's amazing. Listen, Dr. Tobach, thank you for being on the New Theory podcast, and we'll be sure to put links to your book in the show notes, and thank you for being on the New Theory podcast.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.